So the what really happened that night video generated a lot of viewer opinions on what really happened that night, and they're great. So I thought, let's go over them for a few reasons. One, I love the idea. And two, it really, I mean, I didn't say this in the video but that I made, but that was just kind of my general idea of what the basic pieces that I thought had happened. But I have a very open mind, and some of you made suggested something that I definitely think is true that I don't think I had ever even considered. And there are just some other things that differ from me that I think are really good, probably true also, and things that I had kind of like considered, but for whatever reason abandoned or whatever. So we're gonna do that. It might take a long time. I might split it into two. I don't know. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. I like long videos, and I think a lot of people do. I don't know. I like to sleep to videos about murder because something wrong with me. And Forensic Files is like a lullaby to me. So let's start with this one. They're not really in any specific order. I'm doing them. Okay, this is from Hyperdog67. I've got a theory I'd like to share, and I'd like to see who agrees with me. Okay, let's go. I don't believe for 1 minute that Sarah went upstairs and fell asleep. I believe she passed out right there in front of him. Listen to her speech and her slurring words, not making sense while she's taunting him. But in Sarah's mind, she thought that claiming she went upstairs would sound better than just saying, I passed out because I'm a blackout drunkie the bear. Just shows you how screwed up her mind works. Instead of just saying, I passed out. That would have been easier to defend than the crazy story she came up with. And what grown adults together at home with some booze really want to play hide and seek? Really? Yeah. No, they don't. And this is, first of all, this is the theory. So a few people mentioned that they're like, she didn't go upstairs. She passed out right there. And yeah, duh. That didn't even, I mean, I'm me, the one who's carrying on with my loud mouth about what a liar she is and how stupid she is. I'm still believing some of her lies. It's amazing. It's very interesting to me because it's amazing how persuasive someone can be, even though you know they're always lying. It's just when there are so many lies, it's very hard to. But yes, I think you're right, Hyperdog67. I don't think that she went upstairs. And I think you're exactly right about the reason. Because in her mind, it does sound better. I mean, passing out on the couch is something a drunkard would do. And we all know that Sarah does not like to get drunk. And she can't get drunk because she has a son. So yes, I think we can put that. I'm going to put that in the, so we're going to eventually come up with a cohesive, as close to the truth as we think we can. And if there are reasons that you don't think that she passed out downstairs, let me know. We're gonna figure this out. So I thought this was very good, and I thought the exactly what went through her mind is exactly the reason why she did this. And I think that this is an example of how she got trapped by all of her lies, so to speak, because she wasn't going to go back on them. She's not going. She, as we've discussed, even in the interrogation, she would blame the alcohol, but she wasn't drunk. I never said I was drunk. Who's lying about what? Yes, you can see I drank some. So that wasn't going to happen, and that's exactly it. She wasn't going to say I just passed out. Now we've got from Route Iris 2503. Great video. Thank you. I think George had it that night and was packing his suitcase. Remember, on the stand, she slipped and said, please don't go. Then she corrected and said, please stop doing this to me, which was total BS. We saw her videos. She still went with the abuse BS during the sentencing. I don't believe George ever abused her. Neither do I. He retaliated for sure. Sarah is where she belongs. Agreed. And yeah, and by retaliate, I think what we mean is defended himself. I agree with that. And I do think it's possible that he was packing, but I think she started it just because I don't. I mean, listen, I don't know. It is possible that he took out the suitcase and was packing his stuff to go. But for some reason, I just don't see him, just from everything we've seen from him, I don't see him taking such an aggressive stance. I could be wrong. I mean, God knows she put him through enough all the time, and I'm sure that night as well. I also, and we'll get to one or two of the comments that mentioned that some of his things were in the suitcase. Okay, here's Doom 4067. He was finally packing to leave. That did two things. It stripped her of almost all control almost immediately, and it left her with no one else to blame for her problems. She couldn't stand for either of these things to happen. The last time she called the police what was the first time that he was willing to tell them what she had been doing, and she caught felony charges. Now, I'm not sure about that, but we'll get into that in a second. That's why she stopped calling them. She had lost control of him and couldn't trust him to keep quiet. The theory is that he learned the reality of this situation and the pre-trial diversion classes that he had to attend because of her false accusations. She couldn't have waited 12 hours, as she claims, to remove him from the suitcase, because that's the height of rigor mortis. No human could do that under his own power. She knew that night and removed him before rigor mortis set in. Very possible. The thing is that I'm not sure about this because I believe that she caught the felony charge a few times back. Maybe one of the first times that she called them, because after that is when she kept saying on all the other times she called, "I'm not getting arrested, am I? I'm not getting arrested, am I?" Because the thing is that most people would happen the time that she was arrested, when he was defending himself and she said he was attacking her. And most people would take that as a warning sign to not do this anymore and not call the police and not attack him. But not Sarah. I think that's part of the reason why George is dead today, because I think that infuriated her so much. And she weaponized that against him. And that's why every time the cops came, she said, "I'm not getting arrested, am I? I'm not getting arrested, am I?" And they were like, "Why would you be getting arrested?" She's like, "Well, because last time I defended myself." So she was basically covering her ass just in case he had any marks on him or said anything. She wanted them to know that that's what she gets for arrested, for defending herself. Now, unless you're talking about a different incident, I think that, I mean, she called the cops plenty of times after that, unless there's an incident that I don't know where she caught a charge, but I'm not aware of it. I think we generally agree that however way that he got to packing, he was packing, and that did strip her of all control that she was losing almost immediately, and we know that was not going to go well. And I think that partly he did learn a lot in that class, and he maybe was coming around to realize that he was the one being abused. So it's very possible. I mean, if only he had had the time, to get out. There might be children enjoying themselves outside. Obviously, it's beyond my control, or it wouldn't be happening. Apologies in advance. Next one is from Since Sliced Bread. And Since Sliced Bread says, "I think that George was packing to leave Sarah that night. Juan, his brother, mentioned in an interview that George had said he was wanting to leave Sarah. I believe Sarah flew into a narcissistic rage and beat George senseless with the ever-present baseball bat. I think Sarah put him in his own suitcase and kicked or threw the case downstairs, which resulted in a loud crashing noise the neighbors heard. I believe Sarah thought he was dead, but then he moaned her name and Sarah couldn't resist and started taking pictures and videotaping George for his future humiliation. I also think George watched and listened to George passing, only phoning Brian when it was all over just before passing out on the couch, not upstairs in her bedroom." Since Sliced Bread, I think this is all right. I think I mean, we all agree that he was packing to leave, and that's why the suitcase was out. How he came to be packing, whether it was her idea or his, really doesn't matter. It's just a small little detail. It's kind of interesting to think about. But it explains those things of his that were in the suitcase. It explains um, why the suitcase was out. And it also explains, so I agree that he was in the suitcase when it went down the stairs because it's just going to make a louder noise. And my guess would be that this night wasn't the first night that someone would have fallen down those stairs. They probably fall down those stairs every night. So those neighbors, it wouldn't have been such an unusually loud crash for them. And I feel as though, a rectangular mass will make a lot more noise than a human body going down a flight of stairs. And of course, Sin Sliced Bread also knows that she passed out right there, not upstairs, which I'm the last one to this party. I mean, yeah, you're right. I think this is an excellent overall um, synopsis of what happened. You're right. I have one question. I would like to know, Sin Sliced Bread, what you think she was calling Brian for, if she even knew why, you know. And do you think she heard him pass away and registered it as that and kept it in her mind for more than 2 seconds, or do you think she was just sitting there drunk and thrilled with herself? And um, because from what I understand about blackout drunk and what I know from being drunk, you do have a lack of true comprehension of certain things or the severity of certain things. Although, I mean, for me personally, someone dying is a real buzzkill. I would imagine it would snap me out of it, but that's me. Um, so yeah, what do you think she was calling to tell Brian or say to Brian or ask Brian? Excellent. This is excellent. Now I might, well, it doesn't matter what I might do because you're not going to know. I'm going to just do it. This is one of the very funny comments, one of the many that we got. Dabs for Dummies 7269 says, I think every time the bottle got low and there were no replacements in sight, time to call 911 so she didn't have to share. LOL. Yeah. I mean, let's gather around Sarah's priorities here. That makes sense too, and it's very funny. Okay, here's from Linda HK9er. Always a pleasure to see your videos, Miss Suma. Thank you. I agree with all theories presented. Thank you. I always have thought that she is the most vile person I've ever come across. Agreed. And I've been around. Ditto. I always had this idea, however, that she had Brian come the next morning and was hoping that he would offer to get rid of the body because for some reason she just always thinks that he will save her like she's this damsel in distress. And of course, Brian, the noble person we've come to appreciate, would never even dream of such a thing. And I think that's why she's even more bitter to him now than she ever was. I pray Brian and his son get the therapy that they need to only see her in the rearview mirror for the rest of their lives. Agreed. Hoping that he would offer to get rid of the body because, for some reason, she just always thinks he will save her, like she's this damsel in distress. And I think for good reason she thinks that. Because up until then, he did. Of course, before that, it was putting a little, $10 in her account for rude. Up until recently, saving the day was just putting $10 in her account so she could go buy some Woodbridge Chardonnay, or letting her come over and when she wanted to for whatever reason, or saving the day didn't involve a felony and a dead body. But I agree with you that she called him over in hopes that he would help in one way or another. Linda Bradford 4198 says, Brian said she was running around with George while they were still married because motherhood had become a drag. However, she still wants to be Mother of the Year. I think George took a trip down the stairs in the suitcase. I thought it when all of this started, and I still do. I thought it when all of this started too, and now I still do again. It just makes more sense. It's also the kind of thing Sarah would do, there's something extra cartoonishly evil about it to put someone in a suitcase and then push it down the stairs like the little ghoul that you are. And yes, he did say that motherhood seemed kind of, I mean, to simplify it, it was seemed kind of a drag to her. And I think that the reason for this mainly is that, it's a known fact that motherhood is not easy, and being the mother to a small child is not easy. And Sarah, for all of her carrying on about herself, Sarah doesn't like not easy, which I get. I mean, none of us love not easy unless you like a certain kind of challenge, but life always, even an easy life, gets a little too tough sometimes. And I think the difference with Sarah and, say, one of us or a slightly, or the average person is that we don't expect to meet every challenge with perfection. And so when we don't meet every challenge with perfection, we look at it as an opportunity to learn from that and move on. We can accept the fact that we are not perfect. Sarah cannot. And I think that as soon as she started to see herself as the mother that she was and not the mother that she wanted to be seen as, not even wanted to be, but wanted to be seen as, she didn't see herself as that. And that started her facade crumbling. And that's when the alcohol started. And that's when the cavorting around that bar across the street started. And she got all tied up with the men folk over there. And here we are now. You heard me. So, yeah, here's a comment that I love. First of all, I'll show it because I love the way it's presented. And also, the last sentence of this really spoke to me. Seabreeze Guyona 8699, actually it's R Seabreeze Guyona 8699, said, absolutely agree. She knocked him out with a bat, slammed him into the suitcase, and glad she is held accountable. Yes. George was not and is not the abuser. Agreed. She was jealous of George and his awesome family. And this is interesting because it's not something we hear a lot said, because there are so many other things she was pissed off about that are ridiculous and are, a given. I mean, we can all agree that there are a lot of things. She was very jealous, she was very controlling, but I agreed that she was jealous of George and his awesome family. And I think that she was jealous in general, because this is somebody who, in my opinion, when it really comes down to at her core, she hates herself. And she hates herself because she's let herself down so many times and she cannot deal with that. And I think that although you don't get any sense, or I don't, and get any sense from Sarah that she grieves her deceased family, as she puts it, they are deceased. And I don't know what her mother and father were like, but I know that from what I see in the pictures and from what I see of them, George's family was a simple, close, warm family. And the fact that they did not like Sarah was surprising to her, because Sarah also thinks she's better than everyone else. And in her slightly racist, if we want to say slightly, and delusional mind, she feels that she should walk into the Torres household and they should just be praising the gods that she's there. So this was a real wake up call for her, and I agree. I think she was very jealous, because that kind of family is the kind of family that, if you don't have a family, or even if you don't have a family like that, that you want to be part of. I mean, and I'll probably say this a million more times, although I don't think I've said it yet. We know whose children were there to stand up for them at the pre-sentencing, and we know whose child was not. And that says a lot about a family and about Sarah Boone and George Torres. This is from Helen Someone, 6167. All scenarios are possible. However, above all else, Sarah did indeed intentionally unalive George, as evidenced in a recent text saying, hide and seek I shall, and get rid of him. She obtained the bat for this purpose. She had started to document evidence for future defense purposes. She was the abuser. Sarah is a sadistic narcissist with a superiority complex. You got that right, Helen. She thought former husband would assist in disposing of George and the case. Echoing many of your thoughts, of all your thoughts. And Allie Nabshire has an interesting take on that hide and seek I shall text, and she might be a super genius. I have always read that text as hide and seek I shall. He wasn't calling her back, so she was going to track him down. I'd still love to see her Google searches from that night slash morning. Dollars to donuts, malicious intent was mentioned somewhere. Yeah, first of all, now I want donuts. Doesn't take much. And absolutely, I was hoping so much that we would get, because that malicious intent thing just seemed so contrived, and it had to come from somewhere. And I mean, there are a lot of things I'd like to know about that, her last night of freedom. I want to know if she got drunk. I'm thinking she may not have, actually, because she was with Brian. She must have been exhausted, and I don't know if she got drunk, if she would have even shown up at that uh, interview the next day. But it's possible. I mean, I don't know. But I've actually tried to Google the possible things she could have Googled to see, to to look for malicious intent. I mean, you know, no malicious. But I didn't find it. I should try that again. I'll let you know what happens there. So, Allie, I'm impressed. Not that I'm the one to judge who's a genius and who isn't, but okay, here's a beautiful mess. Here are my thoughts. I believe she pulled the suitcase out of the closet. She made a big deal of clothes, etc. during interview, but no clothes were downstairs. After convincing him to get in the suitcase and zipping it, I believe she tossed him down the steps. When the when at the bottom, she rolled him around a bit. I believe there are tracks in the carpet. She stopped, grabbed her phone, and began bitching. Anger grew, so she stopped recording, grabbed the bat, and beat him, and then flipped the case over, ensuring no exit, records a bit more, then says night night. Night night. Yeah, so, right. There was no clothes downstairs. Well, I think the way she said it was they were fixing to put clothes in it to, I mean, apparently everything took 6 months over there, but yeah, of course there was no clothes down there. And it's possible that she got him in it, convinced him to step in and zip it up. But now that we've been discussing the fact that some of his things were in it, and I had thought of this because they're the kinds of things that he would bring, his paperwork and stuff. Um, Definitely tossed him down the steps in the suitcase. And I noticed the tracks in the carpet. And I don't remember now because it's been a while since I really looked at those photographs, but carpet is such a mess, and I think the tracks may have been there before, but we know that was the shuffling. That's the thing that I didn't talk about in my video, is that the shuffling sound that the neighbors heard, that was obviously her, pulling the suitcase with him in it, because that's the kind of shuffling that would be loud enough for them to hear, and that's shuffling. That's what that motion would be. Lynn L4WM says, yes, some of his clothes and medicine were in the suitcase. I think he was trying to leave her, too, and she really snapped. Yeah. The Eric the actor says, the beautiful thing about Sarah is that for 4 years, she drove everyone crazy asking for the evidence in her case. When she was forced to represent herself, she got her precious discovery, and she clearly didn't even look at it. Because her stories about George's arrests were completely different than the story she told the cops on the body cam. And a lot of her lies are proven lies on the body cam. For instance, the night that the cops picked her up from Brian's house, one, she was clearly lying when the cops asked her what happened. But she said George kicked the door in 4 times and punched her in the ear while she was sleeping. At the trial, she changed it into barricaded the door with a dresser and a nightstand, and he squeezed through. Problem is, the cops took George into the bedroom to get his shoes and shirt before going to jail. That dresser is not moved, and neither is the nightstand. So she changed her story at some time. The body cam clearly shows a lie. Also, she said their first date, they went back to the townhouse. That's townhome. Eric, don't do that again. Townhome. They went back to the townhouse first. They were and he beat her and made her lay in the corner and not move. Sarah never lived in the townhouse without George. That's right. Although I've heard various things about that, but I don't think she did. They moved in together. That's what I thought. She still lived with Brian when she met George and couldn't afford that. Right. And that's what I think. I've just heard various things from various people, or either who lived there or, different accounts. But I think that's true. And that story she told, first of all, the body cam, all of the body cam disproves everything she says. And I did a short and then I took it down because it wasn't very good. And I thought maybe I'll go into it more deeply in a video. But as she's talking about, there were holes punched in the walls, and at some point, after she's convicted, she writes a letter, I think, or maybe in her part two of her allocution, she says something where, why didn't you take pictures of all the holes in the walls, and why didn't you take, and she says that he destroyed her son's room where she would go for safety, and he ripped the doorknobs off the doors, and that townhome is pretty pristine considering how drunk she is. The doorknobs were on the doors. There were no holes in the walls. This was not a place that had been through hell like she's talking about. Her son's room was perfectly intact. It's all nonsense. And that particular story that she gives them after she uses the car, the police as a car service back to her townhome. She says that she was in bed sleeping and he kicked the door in 4 times. So my question is, did he kick the door open, close it again, and then kick it again? How do you kick a door open 4 times? Why would you either kick the door open and you go in and you punch someone, or you don't? I mean, there's no, he would have to kick it, close it, right? And I know this cop didn't ask her anything further because he knew she was lying. He just had to do what he had to do. But, oh, God, is she detestable in that video. Yeah, you're right on all counts, in my opinion. Also, either way, first of all, I don't think that contradicting evidence matters to Sarah. She's not thinking about the evidence. The only evidence she tried to cover a little bit was the bruises on George and I guess on his fingers and stuff, because that's when she said that she poked him with the bat, because somebody got through to her, maybe Owens, that she had to account for that. Or maybe because she needed that act of, what was the term? That one particular act that would make it possible to do the BSS defense. But yeah, she generally doesn't care about evidence that she's not thinking about it, obviously, since all the doorknobs were intact and there were no holes in the walls. Kevin Quist says, "Bullseye, thank you. You are the first I've seen to do what really happened with Sarah Boone case. You did a fantastic job. Kudos. Thank you." And there is another, there might be more than one, but there is one that I watched a while, I guess when it came out. And I'm going to link it below because this woman, her channel is really interesting. She does a lot of Sarah Boone stuff, and I don't know. She's Scottish. She speaks with an accent, but you can understand she speaks English. And she doesn't present herself. She uses basically just footage, and I think that puts people off at first. So, but you should definitely check her out because her videos are really good. I mean, she does this video is long. She really goes into it, and she does the psychology of it. She's quite good. I think if you are into Sarah Boone, which clearly if you're watching this, you're into her, you'll like this. I'm going to link that below. So, but thank you, Kevin. That's very nice. Kevin Quist also says, it wasn't even so much that she lied about what happened. People lie, especially in awful situations. Very true. Honestly, officer, he pulled out in front of me. I wasn't speeding. It's hardwired into us. I agree. She has two huge issues. One, she can't admit that she is not a deity. And two, she is god awful at lying. Hide and seek? Really? Hell, I might have even bought the we wanted to see if he could fit. Drunk people do dumb shit. But she conflicted her last lie with her new lie, which will conflict the next lie. Absolutely correct. She just can't admit that she's, like you say, not a deity. So it's not even about can't admit that she's not right. Can't admit that she's not. This is also very good. Shin's Koala 7072. I think George would have had to get into the suitcase voluntarily. I don't think Sarah had the strength, alcohol fueled or not, to lift him and position him like he was. I've been knocked out before, but I was only unconscious for less than a minute. There's a good chance he would have woken up while she was manipulating his body, since he sounded alert and aware when he was begging for his life. Shortly after. The only way that theory would work, in my view, is if she hit him over the head with a bat from behind while he was packing his clothes, and then somehow he made her fallen into the suitcase almost perfectly. I most certainly agree, however, that George's injuries occurred outside the suitcase. Off subject a little, but I also feel that when she called Brian, George was still in the suitcase. I believe that she wanted to leave him there for easy disposal with Brian's help, but enabling only went so far. That's not to say that Brian knew or was asked to participate, only that Sarah knew he wouldn't help once he insisted to call 911 immediately. So when the only thing with that is that when Brian got to, I think you're right about all of that, and the more I think about it, of course, I don't think. I mean, it would have been a real job for her to get him in that suitcase. Although I don't know, I can't imagine if he was packing. Then how's she going to convince him to get him in there? She must have, but I don't know how. That's the thing. She may have been beating him so hard that she basically said, get in. I think if we had a video of what went on there, taken by a surveillance video or something, we would really be still shocked about how cruel she is. I really do. Thank God it's very difficult for us to imagine because we're not monsters. So the only thing is, he may have been in the suitcase when she called Brian, but when Brian got there, George was out. So, and someone else had mentioned something about rigor mortis and how she probably would have had to take him out the night before, which I looked up, and he's right. That would have been the height of rigor mortis. So I don't know. I mean, I've never dealt with a corpse and in any stage. So Doom had some other comments that were very good. Doom 4067. She spent 12 hours working on a story about how Brian had done it. When he physically refused to disturb the scene, she had to call 911 and make it up on the fly. I think that's where the hide and seek came from. I think that she heard how it sounds as soon as she said it, but went with it after it came out. Yeah, she went with everything after it came out. One of her other problems. Except for it was a great day. I don't know where this is coming from. Then she brought it into, I was poking and. Thank you for watching this video and for making this video, basically, because this was all of your ideas, and there were a lot of them, and there are a lot more of them. So I'm going to have this in at least another part, possibly another 2 parts, depending on how long it takes, obviously. This has been really fun, and this was exactly why, or what I had in mind when I started a channel. I really just wanted to start a discussion about the things that we're watching as people who are interested in crimes and trials and those kinds of things. And it's been great. And it's just going to get greater, I think. If it stays just like this, I'll be very happy. I'm really pleased I'm just having a really good time, and I hope you are too. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye.